Grand Rising, everyone. Adley coming to you live. Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Yum. Okay, let's get started. Let's see here. So we're doing the Emerald Tablet, Alchemy for Personal Transformation. And we were talking about one of what they call the greatest alchemist out there. So I'm going to continue reading. As we know that Balinus went out and to society and told them to stop slaughtering, thousands of humans and animals. And he told them that they should raise their consciousness, right? Rising their consciousness to a higher level so that they might experience truth directly. And there's nothing more exciting than the ongoing process of creation. We can say that alchemy is an ongoing process of creation. It is a process and it's ongoing, and it leads to transformation, transmutation, changing from one thing to the next. We're in a motion of change. That's the constant, that's for sure. So when he arrived in Athens, he initiated into the mysteries. Balinus received an overwhelming enthusiastic reception by the people. He became one of the hierophants who led the ceremonies. Became jealous, one of the hierophants became jealous and refused to initiate Balinus, accusing him of being a sorcerer. So this is important. Because this work has such great power, right? Doing spiritual alchemy, with it comes great power, great responsibility. Here's the deal. People say, ooh, great power. It's kind of like, my precious, Schmeagle, right? Where you get this information in your hands, and some people don't know how to use it for the good. Sometimes they'd use it for manipulation. Well, we have a bunch of people doing that right now, right? It's a very simple thing. We know that we're being, manipulated by people who are quote unquote in power. It's funny because they didn't want to initiate him, saying he was a sorcerer. The jealousy itself is sorcery, right? It becomes sorcery or black magic when we are jealous of other people's gifts, or we get hurt we think other people are doing better, and we compare ourselves, and then we do things to harm them so that whatever, they don't get it our way. That literally is sorcery. But this work can be seen as sorcery to some people. Now, there is a distinction between the two, sorcery and being a light worker. So sorcerers use information, especially sacred information, to bend reality and manipulate it for their own benefit. So it's just for them. It's not to support anything else. It's not to support others. Now, that's not to say that we as, light workers, spiritual workers, don't get something out of it. We do, because people say, well, it's always the selfish. Yeah, we do. We get something out of it, of course, which is enjoyment and gratitude and gratefulness. It's not doing harm, in other words, what we get out of it. So the consequences of utilizing spiritual alchemy in a way that is sorcery, you won't know, and nobody will ever know the full consequences of those actions. It's like a ripple effect. So it's kind of like, well, on a bigger scale, let's think of a tsunami when the earth shakes, right? Or we have plate tectonics at play, and they're converging, and we start to have these earthquakes, right? And then boom, something happens in the ocean, and the water, comes. The tides come in. So when we look at that and we see the ripple effects of what that wave does, we really don't know the full consequences of what's going to happen, right? The tsunami itself maybe shook, the earth was shaking, right? That was like the event that happened. But the consequence of that was ginormous. The wave came crashing and maybe destroyed, entire villages, societies. So we don't know the magnitude and the consequences that we actually are putting out there if we utilize this work in a way that's not good. So it's just understanding what are the consequences, which we will never fully understand. If you dropped a pebble into the water, we don't know how far it's going to ripple out, or where it's going to ripple out, or what are those ripples doing. We don't know what's happening underneath, right? The water. We don't know what effects it might have on the microorganisms that are living there. We just don't know the consequences sometimes. So when we're doing things like manipulation or using this great work for manipulation, the consequences can be detrimental to everybody. So the distinction between a sorcerer and a magician. Sorcerer uses the great work to bend reality for their own personal gain. That's really what it is. So when you look at, if we went back into history and even the foundation for America, right, it was based on Masonry principles, which came from spiritual alchemy. It's all spiritual alchemy. So literally using the information to bend reality for the benefit of the few and even for themselves. Right? But if we look at using it as a magician, we say that we're going to utilize the information for the benefit of all humanity. And we have those people who rise up. Those people who rise up are not necessarily popular amongst the sorcerers. The sorcerers themselves will do anything to keep their power, right? And so they would go as far as to murder, kill, all that kind of stuff, right? To take their power back. So again, when we're looking at it from this perspective, and this happened, so this happened to Balanis. He basically went out. They were jealous and they refused to initiate him, and they accused him of being a sorcerer. Why? Because he was starting to change the mindset of the individual people. Okay, the crowd was upset that the Hierophant recanted, but Balanis declined to participate under these conditions. Though he wanted to gain access to all the mystical ceremonies to understand their underlying philosophies, he postponed. Okay. And then he prophesied the name of the Hierophant who would initiate him for 4 years later. So back then, and here's the funny thing, they're calling it the Hierophant. If you look at alchemy, if you look at it from the perspective of perhaps the tarot, right? The tarot structure, we have the Hierophant. That is number 5 in the tarot deck. Now, tarot itself, people will say, is sorcery. It's not. It's not sorcery. It's not black magic. It is a process. Tarot is a process. It's the process and understanding, right? Good morning to all those who are coming in. Of the process of natural law and how we depict it here in the physical world. So the Hierophant being number 5. Now, each number for the tarot is connected to the Kabbalah. There's numbers in numerology and astrology. Everything is interconnected, okay? All right, so the reputation of the Hierophant led to ceremonies, and then he did. So Balanis also used his growing influence on the rulers of the Roman Empire to show them the emptiness of strictly political viewpoints. So Empress Titus, Nerva, all received his counsel and became known for the enlightened regimens. When Emperor Vespasian asked him what a good king should do, Balanis told him, count on wealth which is stored up. In what way is this superior to stand haphazardly heaped? Nor count that which comes from man who suffer taxation heavy weight, for gold comes from tears, is based and blackened. You'll use best of any king if you supply the needs of those in want and make their wealth secure for those who have it, and be fearful of the power to do whatever you please. Okay, so this is not good to just do whatever you please because you have power, is what he's saying. Do not loop off the ears of the corn that show beyond the rest and raise their heads, but rather weed their disaffection out of the sorry, I can't even read today. Out like the tares of the corn shown your fears and stirred up of strife, not in punishment, but in saying that you will submit yourself to the law. So the law, submit yourself to what law? Well, natural law, God's law. God's law exists, right? And if we're following that particular law, if we're following natural law, we're always going to find our way back to harmony and one with nature, one with the world, one with the cosmos. It'll find that balance. In fact, if we looked at tarot again, there's we have balance in there, right? Justice. Justice is balance, which is Libra, which is connected into the constellation of Libra, which is actually, I've talked about this many times. If we look at law, if you go to the law and you see the lady holding the scales, that comes from tarot as well. Lady Justice, or Mayat, who is the Egyptian goddess of justice. She has wings and she holds the scale. Right. And then it goes into further mythology of, what you do in your life, how that's balanced out, determines if you pass into the gates of heaven, right? That's kind of the myth story that they have behind it. And so we have justice. So the symbology is everywhere. And when you're looking at alchemy, I look for the signs. I love it. I love going around, and that's why I love looking at architecture, because every great architectural design, even the wonders of the world, has alchemy in it. And it's phenomenal. It's crazy. I mean, when you start to know this, you start to interconnect. Here's the thing it does. It interconnects all the neural pathways in your brain. When you start to read and understand and apply, it literally will open up your mind and expand to other or interdimensional spaces, into multiple dimensions, into multiple ways of viewing the world, different worldviews, perspectives, and learning how to harmonize all of them. Kind of like being the conductor behind the podium, right? When they're conducting the symphony or the orchestra, you become the constructor of that. You become the one who is there in harmony. It doesn't have to be in chaos. It can be in harmony. Okay. He offers such sound advice. He never hesitated to attack decadent rulers. His fearless, maligned emperor Nero, who in turn charged him with high treason. However, at the trial, the charges against him miraculously disappeared from the parchment as it was unrolled. Okay, so he's forced to release him. Nero expelled him, all philosophers from Rome. And then here we go, he fled to Spain, where he helped to revolt and toppled the despot. So Emperor, let's see here. Let me just go through this really quick because I don't want to read all this. So he slipped out of the chain. So he was actually put in prison, put in chains, and he slipped out. And he learned this from the Emerald Tablet. Let's see here. So they sought out to find out how he was doing this. He kept getting out. So basically what they did is these rulers were looking at him, and he kept getting away, basically. He kept slipping out. And they're like, well, what is it that he's doing? They felt like there were miracles happening, and he kept telling them it's the Emerald Tablet, which is the divine law. Okay, so we could see it sort of like the story of Moses as well, right? Where he comes down from Mount Sinai and he says, hey, these are the laws, this is that, I just talked to God. So everybody, let's follow God's law. It's sort of the same, kind of the same story in a way, where he's telling them, I'm following the divine law. So for you, what does that equate to in your life? What does this even mean? Why do we care? Why are we reading this? Well, because you have a law. There is a law. And no man-made law is ever going to supersede God's law, which I call natural law. And in alchemy, right, and that's what the Emerald Tablets are talking about. In alchemy, there's a set of laws based on the natural world, like cause and effect. Like if you do something, there's going to be consequences. Doesn't matter. Whatever your choice is, there's always a consequence. Do we understand what they are? No, I was talking about that earlier. We never understand fully the consequences of our choices. We don't know. We don't know how they're going to ripple. For me, doing these podcasts, I don't know who I'm going to speak to one day or talk to and how that's going to ripple out. They may talk to their friend, to their friend, to their friend, to them. Before you know it, somebody's doing something. Hopefully it's great, right? Hopefully they're finding their internal path. Hopefully they're giving back to humanity in some way, but we don't know. So it's very, very important that we're looking at how are we maneuvering through life, and how are we, first of all, what are we paying attention to, and how are we engaging with that information? Also, how are we interconnecting with other individuals? What are we saying to them? How are we behaving? How are we interacting? There's a consequence to it, right? You guys get it, but we don't really get it. I don't even get it. I don't know the ripple effects of all of the things that I do. So in alchemy, it's super important. That's why he stood silent for years, because it's words create. Words come from a feeling or a sensation, or they arise from within us for some reason, right? So that feeling has some sort of energy, vibration behind it. Okay, this is nothing new. Stuff you guys already know. When you speak it, you start to shape the reality, bend the reality. But not only are you bending the reality of yours, you're actually rippling out the vibration. So it extends beyond you. It goes further than you. The consequences of that, which people sometimes use karma wrong too, like, oh, you're going to get your karma. And I talked to my Hindu friend, right? And I said, in the Western world, people just throw around karma like it's just a thing that, and he said, oh no, he said that's karma is a good thing. We want to wish good karma to people. Never would we wish bad karma on people. But karma is not just, you're going to get what you deserve. It's not that. It's everything that we do has this ripple effect in the world. And our karma will hit other people. And sometimes it's even the people we love. And we have to watch it happen. So our words are important, right? Language is important. The way that we approach things is important. So cause and effect is a big piece of alchemy, spiritual alchemy, cause and effect. And it's a part of nature, right? If I plant the seed and I water it, well, then life might sprout. That's cause and effect. How I behave, what words I seed in others or myself is going to grow. You can see it that way as well. We have fertile ground sometimes, right? Our mind can be fertile ground. And when we plant things in and we allow things in, that's another thing. What are you listening to? Really this day and age, there's so much to tune into. It's almost overwhelming. It's overstimulating and overwhelming. And asking ourselves, what are we allowing to program ourselves? What is it that we're listening to? Truly. Not just kind of, but truly. Be critical. Start thinking about it. Like, what am I listening to? Like, I don't watch TV. Okay, here's the deal. I don't watch TV. Now, if I'm in a space where a TV's on, let's say, for instance, I go to a friend's house and the TV's on, and a commercial comes on, and I listen to it, I'm like, what in the world is that? I went to the movies the other day. It's a good thing because I love movies. So I went to the movies the other day and they had a commercial. And I couldn't even believe the words that they were saying. I'm like, who's listening to this? Are people like, how come people aren't outraged by the language? Because they're so programmed into it. They're not really analyzing it. They're not really listening to it. They're not really, oh, it's just in the background. Well, it's in the background, but there's a consequence for that happening, right? It's probably landing in the subconscious mind somewhere. It's programming you. Shut everything off. Shut everything off and sit in silence. Try to do it for 5 minutes. Okay, if you can't, try 2 minutes. Some people can't. Just sit there in silence. I'm not saying to meditate. I'm not saying to do anything. Just sit in silence and see what happens for 2 minutes. Put your phones away, turn the noise off, and just sit there. Now, there's not silence, obviously, because you have noise always is happening. We're frequency, so there's always some vibrational frequency. But you know what I mean. Turn off all the stuff. Let the natural noise be where it is. Just in silence. And just sit there. Don't do anything. There's no need to do anything. Just be. And see what happens. I can almost guarantee you're going to start dialoguing in your head. You're going to start hearing the voices in your head. Okay. If you did this, okay, and here, I'm giving you this as maybe an exercise to try for yourself. Sit there in silence. See how long you can go before you have to distract yourself. Listen to the voices in your head and what they're saying. Try to go longer and longer and longer each day. Now, as you do that, start to question, what the hell kind of conversations am I having in my head? Those conversations are the ones that are shaping your life. Those conversations are the reflection that you're seeing externally. Now, people don't want to see this. They don't want to understand that we mirror each other and that our external world is really a construct of our internal thinking, our internal mind, our internal patterns. And we talk about it, but how do you practice it? Because talking about it and conceptualizing it and say, people, I know. Okay, but do you know? No, you don't, right? Practicing is the only way. That's the difference between a master and a beginner. Practice. How do we begin to practice? Well, let's just shut up. That's what I do. Shut up, Natalie. Even though I talk a lot, right? Obviously, I have a whole podcast where I talk. But if you just allowed yourself 1 minute, I don't even know if some people could go for 30 seconds, right? Because we're overstimulated. Technology has overstimulated us. And guess what? Every piece of technology is trying to program you into something. So what is it that they're trying to program you into? What are you listening to? How are you programming your mind, your thoughts? Though that programming is shaping your reality. It's shaping everything around you. Now, it takes you can't, because the thing is, like, we'll listen to stuff, right? Like, we'll agree. We'll be like, yeah, that's, yes, yes, yes. And internally, we feel like, yes, I get it. That's not, getting it and practicing it are two separate things. Not the same. So I can agree with somebody that, yes, I get it. But to practice it, so practicing it is shut everything off and listen. Listen to your dialogue. You'd be like, yeah, I listen to my dialogue. Do you really? Do you truly listen to yourself? It's almost nearly impossible because we have 50 billion things coming at us at once. So what the hell do we listen to? That's the question. But you don't know unless you start to and just pay attention to your internal voice. It's leading you to whatever you're watching or listening to. So when you're like, I can't handle this or this or that or this or whatever, shut the mind off, or not the mind, sorry. Shut the shit off around you. Shut the shit off. Shut it all off. And then listen. And where your thoughts are talking internally is where you're leading yourself. That's, this again, not new information. It's where we magnetize, but practicing it is, I'm a practitioner of esoteric wisdom, not a talker. And then I don't apply it to my life. It's applied. I have to apply it, right? I can't speak about it unless I apply it. I mean, I could talk about ancient practices and all this good stuff, but if I don't apply it, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm gonna be like, that shit don't even work. It sounds good, but when I put it in practice, when I put it in motion, it's not even working. So why would I do it? Somebody make a gimmick, someone trying to make money for what? To tell me something that's not true? I mean, you have to apply it. That's the only way this work gets done. So I would say shut it off, shut everything off. 1 minute, 30 seconds, however long you can go. Start to listen to the dialogue in your head. Don't even journal. Just sit there and listen to yourself. Right? If you can give your time, here's the way I'll say it. If you can give your time to all of the shit that's trying to program you, if you can give every second of your time to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, if you can give all your time to watching TV, the news, emails, if you can give all your time to listening to those people, why can't you give yourself 5 minutes to listen to your own mind, your own shit? Maybe we're afraid, right, of what the hell kind of conversation we're going to have with ourselves or what we're going to hear in our internal world. Maybe we're just wanting to avoid and numb it out by listening to everybody else and what they have to tell us and what they're telling us who we need to be and how we need to act. And they're telling us what we should be thinking and what we should be eating and how we should be dressing and what color your hair should be and what job you should have and how you should behave in society and everything. Do you even have a code of ethics? Do you even know what laws and principles you live by? Do you even know the archetypes that are governing your own body, the energies that actually exist within you? Do you guys know that? Do you know who you are? Do you understand who you are at the macrocosm and at the microcosm? Are you just letting people spoon feed you who you should be and who you are and how you should look and how you should behave? This work is taking personal responsibility for who you are and how you stand in the world. Reclaiming your power. You can't do that unless you listen to the shit in your head, the conversations, the dialogue. Give yourself time, please, and thank you. Give yourself 5 minutes. You deserve it. You deserve to listen to yourself. Who else is going to listen to you if you don't listen to yourself? It's like, listen to what you're saying, really, and analyze it. Think about it. Oh, what's the dialogue in my head? All I'm thinking about is, I got this, I got that, I have to do this, I have a checklist, I have this. Your mind go, 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 go. And you're like, wow, in what part of all of that does it say that I get to take care of me? I can guarantee you, majority of people don't take care of themselves. They're so saturated with shit. I'm telling you, everything's saturated right now. Technology's saturating everything. And everybody is being programmed by something. So if not, program yourself. Figure out what programming you like. There's certain programs I like that I'm like, okay, I like this programming. I'm going to try it on. Let's see if it works. People have created programs and processes, right? If we looked at it like in a computer world, if we let's say we're technical people, we use technology, and there's certain platforms that don't work for us. But there's certain platforms that do. And then there's certain platforms that we kind of twist to our own way of liking, right? Programmers will go in and say, I don't really like this. I'm going to program it this way. But I like the way this works. Same with you. When you're listening to a dialogue, or you're listening to a religion, or your spiritual awakening, or your roadmap to the divine, or the roadmap to your essence, to yourself, to your whatever it is, as you're doing that, you can take programming on, but be aware of it. Don't just say, yeah, that's great. Apply it to your life. See if it works, instead of just talking words that sound pretty. The work isn't pretty. It's not. We have to go through shit. Trust me. Everybody wants to be so polished, so perfect. We're not. That's a lie. That's the mask. That's the let's put some perfume on the shit. And that's not life. There's murky murk. And that's where we learn our greatest lessons. So we can look at the programming and apply it. And I can tell you there are certain programming that I'm like, yeah, I like it. I applied it and it works. Like Kundalini. Kundalini breath work works. I do Kung Fu. Kung Fu works. I go to the gym and lift. Lifting works. I like it. It helps me. It supports me. There's other programming in alchemy. Tarot, the process of tarot works for me. Herbal medicine works for me. So you get to know what works for you. Because my way isn't your way. My way is my way. You have your way. So what is your way? Well, you can't get to that unless you quiet everything out. I'm not going to say quiet the mind, because everybody's like, meditation, quiet the mind. No, I'm telling you, shut everything off and listen to the dialogue. What the hell is your mind even? What are you talking about in there? Are you afraid of it? Are you avoiding it? Are you trying to run away from it instead of facing it, being with it, befriending it, asking you to let it guide you? Carl Jung called that archetypes, energies that exist within us. Okay. I call it energy patterns. But you can call it archetypes, because then they crystallize as like personalities, right? Different personalities, different ways, and we can utilize them. And that's the last thing I'll say. We all have multiple personalities, okay? Multiple personalities. What I think the difference is between multiple personalities and multiple personality disorder is that people with the disorder don't realize they have multiple personalities. But all of us do. We're not always the same person. You could say you have different personalities existing within you. And what are they wanting from you? Those personalities. What are they asking of you? How are they driving you forward? What are they doing? What do they want to do with you? What is it that they're asking? There's something there. They're wanting something from you. And then you can decide and choose. Do I want to follow that energy? Or is that energy harming me? Then you could start to dialogue with it. You can start to have a conversation. See, people don't teach this stuff, because if we did, oh, that person's crazy. They're talking to themselves. I talk to myself all the time. I'm not crazy. I'm trying to figure out how the hell do I live in a world and create my divine purpose? Well, sometimes energies show up inside me that are trying to steer me in another direction. I'm like, no, sorry, not today. Those are archetypes. So we all have multiple personalities. Once we learn how to utilize that and we have dialogues with them and we work through them, we work with them, right? We work with them. That gets us closer to our divine essence. As we reach those stages of divine essence, then we start to tap into our potential and our creativity. This is where purpose, this is where I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. But out of that comes the natural talents that we have and the gifts that we are here to give the world. People are looking for this. They don't know where to find it. You know what they do? They go listen to somebody. They don't even know. They just follow it and they just do it. And it's not really even them. It's not really their medicine. It's not who they are. And they're lost and confused. And then they go to the next program and then they try to, you know, and they're trying to figure it out. But are you analyzing it? The way it is shut it off. Shut everything off. Shut the TV, shut everything off, the technology, close it all up and sit there. 30 seconds to start. I don't even know I don't know what people's attention span is anymore. I don't know if people can sit by themselves in silence for a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know what it is. Figure it out for you. Extend it more and more and more and more and more and more every day. Extend it. When you do that, right, you start to again listen to what's happening internally, and then you can start to understand the personalities that exist within you, the archetypes or the energies, whatever you want to call it. You can start to have conversations. You can actually dialogue, which is called the active imagination in some ways, hypnotherapy. There's other ways to describe it. When you start to do that, then you start to open up yourself to the divine. Because now you know that you're not those things. You're not all of those personalities. You transcend that. And when you transcend that, you can start to hit your essence. It's blissful. But then there's a way to come back down to earth, and then you tap into your greatest potential and reality. And you start to create. There are some very, very hard archetypal patternings that exist within us, right? 10 minutes, instant nap for me. Yay. And those are hard to overcome at times. So working with those, see, people will go to therapy, they'll do coaching, but it's looking at them and saying, how do I overcome or move through them? How do I work with them? They're not going anywhere. I can guarantee it. Carl Jung said that the archetypes that exist within us are almost like our DNA. I kind of agree with him in that respect, that we have this certain code and unique patterning of energy that exists within us, almost like our DNA. So there are certain ways that we behave, and those personalities that exist within us are unique to you, but we can learn how to utilize those personalities, right? And say, well, which ones are holding me back? Which ones are helping me move forward? Why do I have this particular personality? You see, the work is not easy. People can act as though they don't exist. That's another, process. It'll be like, oh, just, pretend they don't exist and forget about it. It's a lie. You can't. The only way is through. That's the only way. The only way to get there is through. You have to work through them. You have to understand them. You can't just go around it. You know why? Because it's in you. It's not outside of you. You can't run from it because it's going to run with you. It's like your shadow. It's going to stay with you. It's not going anywhere. You're not Peter Pan. You can't cut off the shadow. It's going to go with you everywhere you go. So you're going to carry it with you. And that archetypal patterning, right, is well said about the truth. Yeah, thanks. And thank you for showing up here. I'm not sure if you've listened to this podcast before. This is the first time for you. It's what is that? Where are you from, if you don't mind telling me? And welcome. This work is not easy, right? It takes a lot of commitment and dedication and an everyday thing. Let's see, where are you at? Myanmar. Awesome. So what is are you religious, and what is your belief? Buddhist? Myanmar. I don't know where that's at. Is that Asia? Ooh, I don't know. You might want to tell me because I'll wait for you, see if you're typing. Ask a lot of questions because engagement to me is fun. So some people talk, some people don't. Yeah, I mean, believe in Buddhism. Ah, yes, Buddhism, one of my favorite processes. Probably one of the most profound and easiest to follow, in my opinion. Easy, not so easy, right? Simple life, but not so simple. Um, so yes, in Buddhism is well, I believe, right, that Buddhism is exists in everything pretty much. It exists in every religious belief. Well, it was it was an offspring of Hinduism, right? And Buddhism then arose and simple. But the thing with Buddhism is that there's no need to fight. It's peaceful harmony, right? How do I find the balance in my life? How do I find the balance? That is it. To reach the divine, to reach nirvana, to reach that state of bliss, you have to understand what's happening internally. If you don't, that, and then in Buddhism, and I'm glad you bring it up, is when we look at this archetypal patterning or we look at the energies that exist within us that are causing our suffering, if we don't work with it, we're going to continue to have the suffering, right? We have to work with it. We have to understand it so that we can transcend it. There's no way to transcend it without understanding it first. You can't. That doesn't even make sense. You have to go through it to understand it. And in that is the balance, right? How do we find the balance between the two so that there's harmony as we move through the process? We can find balance in our suffering. Where it's almost non-existent in the waking world. But because we live in the waking world, we're going to suffer. It doesn't go anywhere. See? Yes, the middle path. And that's beautiful. And so for the middle path, what I call polarities or dualities, right, is that we find what the polar opposites are, and then we find what's in the center of that. It's almost like a magnetism in some way. It's almost like a magnet, right? That when we get those poles of opposites, which seem opposite, which are not, because once we learn that they're not opposite, we reach holism. The middle path is telling us that we need not swing from one extreme to the other and that we find our middle way. And in that, the gap of it, right, sort of, it becomes whole. And then we reach bliss. We reach that point of the divine. But because we're in the material world, we're always having to come back to find the balance because we're too dense. Our bodies are too dense. So finding the polarities it doesn't need to be fast. That's why people, right, want to go to the extreme of doing stuff. Now, for me, I know what my extremes are, and I know it causes me suffering every time. But the practice of, and this is why I love the practice of Buddhism says, okay, there's no need to be extreme. There's no need to be on one end or the other. Just be right in the center. Because you're closer to reaching divine in the center than you are if you're living in one extreme or the other. And when you do, you cause suffering because why? The pendulum has to swing the other way. It has to. The pendulum goes from one to the other. It's, in other words, if we looked at a wave, if you're riding a wave and it's super, super, super high and you come crashing down, from crashing to the top to the bottom is going to be extreme. But if you find that middle balance and you happen to fall, you're not going to hurt yourself as much. See? And also, when you're finding that middle, you start to ride the wave instead of crash. You start to ride the wave. See? The flow of life, and you're in harmony with the flow of life. There's that harmony, right? The balance, the harmony. So if you're in suffering, you're probably extreme on one end or the other in something. So you got to look at it. That's what I do. I have to look at it over and over again because I'm an extremist on stuff. I cause my own suffering. We all do. We all cause our own suffering. It's true. I cause my own suffering all the time. But being aware of it and how to overcome it is the big thing. You got to work through it. You've got to understand it. If you don't understand the archetypes or the personalities that exist within you, you're not going to understand how to balance it or offset it so that it's actually in harmony with you rather than working against you. You want to work with it, not against it. That's my motto for today, okay? And that's where I'm going to leave it. Work with the tools you have. Work with your body. If you're ill, work with your illness, not against it. You don't want to rage war against your illness. How to see your suffering. How do I see my suffering? Or how am I suffering? Well, I have physical suffering, which is, physical. I can feel it. And that suffering, when I think about how it showed up in the body from my emotional state of being or mind, I don't really have a full picture yet. I'll answer this real quick for you, okay? Just because you asked. Within my uterus, right, which is where I have the most suffering, I'm sure that there are deeper subconscious stories that have not been released, because I believe that the subconscious or our internal world manifest our illness in the external body. And so I haven't necessarily figured out what it is that is the result of the suffering internally. I know part of the story and I'm working through it, but I don't know the other part. Now, when it comes to mental and emotional suffering, that I got in the bag, right? That's like, I have my tools. I know how to bring myself back down and into harmony. But there are times when I do suffer from anxiety, and it's because I'm living in the future rather than the present moment. And so I have tools to do that. Now, what I talk about in terms of the distinction or difference between a beginner and a master is that a master just can do it faster. It's not that they're not experiencing the suffering, it's that they know how to overcome it and work with it faster. And it's a practice. It's like, like my Kung Fu that I do. That is a practice. And I get better as I keep practicing and practicing. If I looked at my master, he's really good, but he's practiced it more than I have. So of course he's going to be better than me. There's no way that I'm going to be better than him. And I probably never will be because I can't catch up to the amount of work and effort and time he's put into the art. So again, with this, it's the same thing. Spiritual alchemy is not just a one and done. Yay, I got it and now I'm good and I'm going to reach the divine. That's not how it works. You don't just take a pill and it just happens. Now it could, I'm not saying it can't, but those are called spiritual emergencies. Some people have epiphanies, wake up, but then they don't know how to utilize it. Sometimes they think they're going crazy and they're not. So in order to find the middle path for me, what I do is I practice. And I've been doing this I've been like this since I was a child. I was born this way. This is one of my archetypal patterns is the Buddha, the Christ, the whatever you want to call it exists within me. We have individuals who hold that energy within them. And that's one of the energies I have, but I have multiple energies that I have to work with, not just that. So spirit in coffee is the truest, most authentic version of my divine self. But put me in a situation outside of spirit and coffee and I become something else, right? I become this whole other person. Now, to practice and to sit here and do this for the rest of my life, that's the point. That's the key. And one day everything will come together, okay, and be in unison with this archetype, which is my Buddha self, Bodhisattva, or how do you say Bodhisattva? Right? Or I don't know how you, probably mispronouncing that, but still, it's that light that lives within us, that we're called to that flame, and that eventually, as we practice this, it becomes everything. And that's it. It seeps into all aspects of our life. And it takes all those personalities and it transcends them. And then we become a connection, a vessel to connect to the divine. But it takes a lot of work. It's not just easy. Put me out in traffic and see how I change. I become this monster fire goddess, where I just want to yell at everybody. But when it comes to spirit and coffee, it's different. The energy that exists within me is the Buddha-like, right? The Christ-like. It shows up in me, and it shows up in you. You have it. Everybody has it. So, and it's balancing that and understanding how to utilize that, right? To bring us to this present moment so that we understand that everything is okay right now. Everything is okay right in this moment. So I hope that helps. I hope that you understand what I was saying. Thank you for showing up. Yes, Buddhism is probably one of my favorite practices and processes. And it's a way of life. And I always said, and it's funny because I'm doing Kung Fu, and they were Shaolin, they were monks, actually. They were Buddhist monks, right? That's the kind of monk I would be, retire to a center where I can train in Kung Fu and just be a monk. I mean, I know that I'm probably, well, no, I'm not glorifying it. I know it would be a lot of hard work, but that's something that's lived within me for my whole life, is to retreat to that, right? To be in religious or spiritual, and see, back then it was religious, but now it's in spiritual practice all the time, all day, every day, which I do anyway, but to be in communion with others. How amazing is that? I think it's amazing. I want that. I want that world, right? That is my world, which I exist in by myself mostly. Okay. Anyway, I better get going. So thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for interacting. I love when people talk and interact. It makes it more rich. And it also allows me to share with individuals authentically how my life is. What's going on in my life. Like, I wouldn't be speaking this if I wasn't practicing it. I'll just tell you that right now. I can't. I have a code of integrity, spirit, mind, body alignment. And if it's not aligned, then it's, how can I talk about it? Wouldn't even make sense to me. Some people do it though, but whatever. That's them. Okay. Have a great day. I will see you guys tomorrow. It's beautiful Wednesday. It's my last day I'm in my master's program, and it's my last class before I get a little break. I cannot wait. I'm excited. Okay. So there you go. Have a great day, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.